Candace, if you could speak for everybody and let me know if you could see this.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so I'll get started with the first few slides and I'll hand it over to you, Candace.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We are super excited to share this information with you. We're thrilled to have you here and excited to share some valuable insights that will help you on your journey to starting your own ABA practice. Before we dive into the content, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself and my co-facilitator, Candace Webb. My name is Nicole Kurtz, and I am the founder of Educate Digital. I specialize in brand development and strategic marketing for small healthcare businesses and practitioners. My passion lies in helping businesses scale sustainably and effectively, ensuring that they have the tools and knowledge to thrive independently. I'm a designer and artist by training, and I have spent the last 15 years working with scientists and doctors and professionals to scale their business through instructional design and brand development. I love to think outside the box and visually convey complex topics. My goal is to design your brand content in a way that's accessible and engaging. Now let me introduce Candace Webb. Candace has over 16 years of experience in the healthcare revenue cycle management, with a significant portion of that time dedicated to ABA and pediatric therapy space. She's an expert in all things health insurance related, from insurance benefit verification to billing, to claims denial management, to contracting and credentialing. She is a powerhouse, and I'm very fortunate to know her. In 2019, she earned her AAPC Certified Professional Biller certification. That is a mouthful. Candace has managed billing and credentialing for both startup companies and larger organizations with multi-state presence. Her passion is helping healthcare providers navigate insurance obstacles so they can focus on delivering quality clinical services. Candace and I met while working for a private equity-backed ABA therapy practice in Austin, Texas. We both saw the need for more ethical and client-focused practices in the community, which inspired us to start our own individual businesses supporting this industry. And our experiences have given us a unique insights into the challenges and opportunities that come with starting an ABA practice. And we're here to help share that information with you and help be your advocates. So with that, let's get into it. This presentation is specifically designed for BCBAs who are curious about starting their own practice, ABA providers who want to avoid private equity-backed funding, or for those who take insurance, not private pay providers, and then those who are looking to expand into new states and new insurance markets. So hopefully that describes who you are, and if so, you'll have a ton of information here. Throughout this webinar, we'll cover essential topics like assessing your true motivation for starting a business, envisioning what success will look like for you, and understanding the risks involved. We'll also discuss real-world industry scenarios like dealing with insurance issues, attracting your ideal client. All of this is to help you navigate the challenges you might face. While we go through these slides, we want you to have these essential questions in the back of your mind. They will really help you set a strong foundation for this journey. What is motivating your decision to start a business? What will success look like for you? And what aspects of the job or industry do you like and dislike? Those are really your guideposts throughout this entire journey as a business owner. Really understanding the answers to those questions, you can always come back to and make sure you're following on your path in your true course. You're going to be pulled in different directions, but as long as you have taken the time to really reflect on these pieces, that's really the basis for success. And ultimately, no one can answer these questions except for you. So it's really pretty critical for you to take the time to explore this and figure out your motivating purpose. Our goal is to equip you with the building blocks for a successful and ethical ABA practice. We want you to leave today feeling empowered and prepared to take the next steps in your journey. So let's get started and embark on this exciting path. So digging into that first motivating question, let's talk a little bit more about the different motivating factors you might be experiencing as you consider starting your own practice. It's essential to reflect on these. Are you looking for more control over your time and pay? Are you frustrated with practices that put profit over quality? Do you want to create a space that prioritizes ethical service delivery? Perhaps you're noticing some industry turmoil and you're seeking more security for yourself and your clients. Whatever the case may be, I mean, I think probably each one of us has experienced at least one of those issues. Whatever the case may be, understanding your motivation is really crucial because it will shape your business model and your ultimately your decisions moving forward. And without really considering these aspects, I think that's kind of where a lot of business owners fall victim to maybe unethical decisions. It's not super black and white. It's a lot of gray area. And you're going to be faced with hundreds of micro decisions every single day. But as long as you really know in your core what you need, you can work towards a more ethical behavior. So, sorry, I'm just checking my notes here. So it's also really important to envision what success will look like for you. That could be financial stability, and you might reach that in 5 clients. So there's no real need to push yourself and stress over attracting hundreds of clients and be in multiple different states. Maybe that's not really your motivating factor. Are you really just looking for professional autonomy, and you want to control your schedule and things like that? Well, maybe business ownership might not be the right path because as the business owner, you will be expected to do all the admin work and you might not be in the field quite as much as you want. Is it important to really make a meaningful impact on your clients' lives? And how many clients do you need in order to achieve that? So it's really more of like a cause and effect. Really understanding what success looks like for you will help you set realistic goals in the future. So again, take some time to think about these questions because they really will guide your journey and help you stay focused on your goals as you navigate the complexities. And so with that, I'll stop talking and I'll hand it over to Candace.
All right. So one thing that is very unique to the healthcare industry is health insurance and working within that space. It's very it brings its own set of unique challenges, and a lot of times, as people who are starting a practice set out, they don't necessarily know what sort of challenges to anticipate with insurance. So I'm going to kind of throw up a common challenge here. Next slide.
Sure.
So this is what happens if you have a client, let's say little Timmy, and his mom's insurance is Blue Cross Blue Shield, and he is on that plan when he starts services with you in April. But then mom loses her job, and little Timmy is switched to dad's United Healthcare insurance. And then in August, mom gets a new job and Timmy now has Aetna. So as a business owner, you're unaware of this insurance, of all of these insurance changes. These sort of happen behind the scenes, and maybe the family hasn't been forthcoming in communicating this to you. And you don't find out until you try to submit a claim to Blue Cross Blue Shield and you get a rejection saying, hey, this policy is not active. So you now have to resubmit and start all over. Next slide. Timmy is only one of your clients. So you have 20 other clients to serve. So all of this resubmitting and figuring out, what's going on with little Timmy's insurance and which insurance plan is the correct one to submit to, all of that is very time consuming. And Timmy is only one of your clients. Next slide. So what would you do in this scenario? You've got a few options. Option 1, you personally spend time on the phone with insurance to solve the problem. So you're calling Timmy's 3 different insurance plans, trying to figure out, when one started and the other stopped, and which one is the correct one to bill for a particular date of service. This is ethical, but obviously very time consuming. Insurance companies often have long hold times, so you could be on hold for 30 or 45 minutes before you even talk to someone at the insurance company. So as a business owner, you can imagine half of your day could potentially be eaten up by interacting with the insurance company on the phone just to resolve this one situation with little Timmy. Option 2, you hand it off to a newly hired intern to resolve the situation. And this could potentially work, but it kind of depends on who the intern is, and what their background is with insurance. Because if they don't have, experience in navigating these types of situations, number one, they're going to eat up just as much time, if not more, than you handling the situation yourself. And B, they might not come to the most accurate resolution. Option 3, discharge Timmy so you don't have to deal with it. And I actually do hear this a lot. And I will say I haven't seen a lot of practice owners actually do this, but I do see this comes up kind of as a can we just get rid of this kid so that we don't have to deal with this? And obviously that is understandable when you take into consideration that you're going to be spending hours on the phone trying to sort out, situations like this. But in terms of ethics and providing access to care, it is unethical and unfair to essentially discriminate against someone because they have a difficult insurance situation or because their insurance company is difficult to reach, or has long hold times. Next slide.
Sure. Oh, I think this one's mine here.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want to finish that thought?
Yeah. So, just really be mindful of when you enter into this space and enter into working with health insurance companies. There are unique challenges, and resolving these situations can be time consuming. And so a key question as a business owner is, who is going to deal with these situations? Is it going to be you as a business owner, or is it going to be someone else, either somebody internally or an outsourced third party? Next
Yeah,
slide.
this kind of ties into, just those micro decisions constantly that you're going to have to face. And it is not black and white. It's going to be a gray area. And just, we are absolutely not pointing any fingers at unethical behavior of business owners. We're just trying to hopefully set the stage of helping you understand maybe the reason why unethical decisions are made. Again, not justifying it, but you can start to understand that there's just so much that you deal with as a business owner. And so maybe just give yourself some grace. But we'll kind of dig into that a little bit more. Okay, so we have an insurance side. Now let's talk about maybe a real world marketing challenge that you might face as you're trying to attract clients. So imagine you are a business owner needing to attract more clients to grow your practice. You invest in targeted online marketing, so paid ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, anything like that. And these ads are emphasizing the success rate and wonderful client testimonials. And this seems like a really straightforward strategy. But there is a catch. The problem is you've used selective data to paint a more favorable picture of your services. The testimonials may not reflect the full spectrum of the client experience. You've kind of cherry picked the ones that make you look really good. And the success rate often lacks the data or the context or things like that. And I think probably all of us, being in our in this field, I'm sure we've probably all seen a business or two fall victim to this. So this might kind of hit close to home. So what would you do in this situation? The reality is, you need to get more clients. How do you balance the need to grow your practice while maintaining ethical standards? You have 5 other employees to keep happy. You need more clients. So what are your options? Option one, you present a more accurate and transparent picture. This is the ethical way, but it may slow your growth. Option two is you continue to ignore these inaccuracies, believing that it's just kind of common practice to highlight the best outcome. And everybody's doing it, so why can't I? This could work in the short term, but it may harm your reputation in the long run, because ultimately it kind of destroys your employee morale. Eventually parents will pick up that your services aren't as great as the reviews are saying. So it's gonna kind of hurt you long term. Option three is you avoid confronting the ethical issues and refocus on word of mouth referrals or community events. And this avoids the problem, but leaves the inaccurate content out there, again, potentially harming your reputation, and ultimately doesn't really show you as a strong leader to your employees. It's again, how do you lead your team? Everybody's really depending on you. So ultimately, you want to create an environment where those testimonials are legitimate, that you want people, raving about your services, and that all comes down to having a vision, knowing your goals, having people to lean on, and so on. And we'll kind of dig into that a little bit more. So admittedly, this marketing scenario is a lot less of a big deal than Candace's example of insurance issues, but it's just kind of used to illustrate a few things. Just namely that owning a business is difficult. It's not easy. And one other kind of unethical thing that kind of popped up as we were organizing this webinar that I thought was funny. So we organized this through Eventbrite that has a free tier of up to 25 attendees. And unethically, I could have just sent all the new waitlist people the Teams link directly and gotten around paying that $10 Eventbrite fee, but that wasn't ethical. And so anyway, just kind of things like that. Again, it's a very small potatoes example, but it's something that you kind of have to constantly think about as you run your business. So I'm going to kick it back over to Candace here.
So why are there so many unethical business owners? I'm sure that whether as an employee of a company, I'm sure that most of us have encountered at least some sort of unethical situation in our workplace. And the reality is that owning a business is hard, and you constantly have to make tough decisions and depend on a qualified team. And it requires a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of expertise. And so when situations come up, like as Nicole said, everything is not black and white. There are gray areas to consider, and a lot of times people just don't have the time to sort through these situations analytically and come up with maybe what's the most ethical solution. They're looking for the most time efficient solution. And that's not a justification for, making unethical decisions. But what's important to understand is that there is a lot to consider, and that there are a lot of different pots that you will have to have your hands in as a business owner, at least to the degree that you are able to, as you scale, maybe you hire, an HR person, or you hire a billing person to actually do the work. But as the business owner, you have to at least be able to have a surface level understanding to where the person that you've hired is able to give you a rundown of what's going on, and you're able to understand and respond accurately and ethically. And so you should also consider that all problems are fixable. I have seen tons and tons of very large insurance messes. They are all fixable. And just, issues, any HR issues with employees, any clinical operations issues, all of those things, they are fixable, but they do require time, money, and staff to fix those issues efficiently and ethically. So what you're looking at here, it's not about short-term gains. It's about really taking the time to establish your business, your goals, your operations procedures and in regard to all of the different elements. So how are you going to, what are your HR operations going to look like? What are your billing operations going to look like? What are your scheduling and your clinical and your credentialing? What does all of that look like? And really think about those things early on so that you are able to scale in an ethical manner.
Absolutely. Yeah, and ultimately, sorry if I cut you off, but
No, go for it.
ultimately, all of this kind of comes down to what does success look like for you? You might be perfectly happy having 5 clients, and that saves you all the time to kind of own more of this process. But if you see yourself really opening a clinic space and you want to sort of, you have this vision of for world domination, I think that's going to require a lot more time, a lot more money, and a lot more, leaning on people. So it really, all of this just comes down to what does success look like to you? What do you want out of this process? And again, nobody can really answer that other than you. I mean, you as the business owner, that's kind of what you're taking on. That's what you're deciding to do. So to that end, I'm going to kind of carry on with another reality check of helping you really understand what you're getting into as a business owner. Owning a business is really incredibly rewarding. I'm sure, Candace, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm very happy
absolutely.
that
Yes.
I jumped into this, and I kind of wish I had done it sooner. So it absolutely is extremely rewarding. But it's important to understand, just kind of level set and be realistic, mitigate some expectations. So I'm sure you've probably heard some of these stats before, but 20% of small businesses fail within the first year and 50% fail within 5. And I think there's even the stat of 80 or 90% of small businesses fail completely. So just kind of be realistic, in terms of where you see yourself with that. Sometimes that survival rate is really due to the fact that they scaled way too quickly, or maybe they weren't solid enough in their decision making, and they kind of hesitated and didn't take advantage of opportunities, whatever that case may be. But a lot of businesses do go under pretty quickly, and it's just kind of comes down to not planning appropriately. So what are some other reasons why businesses can go under? For one, running a business can be all consuming. I don't know how much time you spend in a day working on your business, but I know I spend quite a lot of time, and I actually have to schedule date nights with my husband just to make sure that I can have that work-life balance. Especially in the beginning, it can really be all time consuming. You'll work long hours to get things off the ground and to keep them running smoothly. 2, the upfront costs are considerable. Cash flow at the early stage can be really unpredictable, and you're going to have to bite the bullet and pay for that QuickBooks subscription, or pay for a bookkeeper to do your books, because they can get it done in 20 minutes where it takes you 5 hours. So it's really understanding what's worth your time, and where your efforts can be better utilized. But that's a cost that you have to kind of balance. Number 3, specifically for this field, you will have regulations that you need to comply with, and Candace she's the pro at this, so she'll dig into that a little bit later. But ultimately, by understanding the challenges and being prepared to face them, you will increase your odds of success. Okay, so now you know what might cause a business to fail. Let's focus on how to succeed. And as Candace explained earlier, all problems are fixable. Just knowing how to prepare yourself is the best case, best way to avoid that. Okay, so avoiding some pitfalls. The next few slides will provide the traits of a successful business owner. And as we go through these 5 traits, really consider your own personal strengths and weaknesses as it relates to these. And then also, again, tie it back to those essential questions. Do you see yourself as a visionary leader? If not, maybe partner with somebody who has those skill sets and find complementary things. You don't have to do it all on your own, I guess, is really kind of our point with these next few pieces. So up top first, a business owner is a visionary leader. They have a clear vision and can inspire others to work towards a common goal. This is your baby. This is your idea. No one is going to care about it as much as you do. And that's kind of how it should be. But you need to know how to articulate that to your team so that they feel inspired to follow you down this journey. So yeah, it's really important to understand what does success look like, and where do you see this going? Candace, I'll hand it off to you.
Another successful trait of a successful business owner is resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and learn from failures and and use challenges as opportunities for growth. And this is something, and I'll kind of go more into this a little bit later, but the healthcare industry is constantly evolving and changing. And so just when you think you've learned how to do billing or how to credential or how to write a treatment plan in compliance with a particular insurance company's requirements, just when you think you've learned that, the requirements change, and so you're having to say, okay, well, they are now rejecting what I'm doing, and now I have to go back and learn and relearn. And so really the ability to just kind of roll with the punches and never think of failure as failure, but see it as a learning opportunity and use it as a jumping jumping off point for growth is really, really essential as a business owner.
Yep, absolutely.
Next slide. And so kind of what you want to think about also is what your role as a leader is going to look like. It's very common for businesses in the startup phase for the owner to do everything. So you're the BCBA, you own the company, you're seeing the clients, you're even doing the direct treatment by yourself, you're doing the billing, you're doing the bookkeeping, you're scheduling. All of that is feasible potentially, when you have about 5 clients. But think about kind of even when you're in that stage, even when you're in that, oh, I've only got 5 clients, this is I can manage this. Even when you're in that stage, you wanna think forward and think, what is this gonna look like when I have 20 clients or 30 clients? Your availability for clinical hours is going to decrease as you grow. So you're not going to be able to do 40 hours of direct therapy, a week with 10 kids and do the billing and do the scheduling and do the bookkeeping and all of the back end business stuff. So what is that going to look like for you? That's an essential question to ask yourself and to constantly be asking yourself. So you want to reevaluate this as you're growing. So think about what it looks like with 5 clients, project what it's going to look like with 10. Then when you actually get to 10 clients, ask yourself, okay, is this what I envisioned, or do I need to make adjustments? Is this harder to manage than I thought it would be? Is it easier to manage than I thought it would be? Always be asking yourself those questions as you're growing, and really try to forecast what the next milestone or what the next stage in your business is going to look like. Next slide.
Okay, so that was all really, really wonderful. I think those are the 2 biggest pieces. I think the resilience aspect, I think, is I think one of the biggest things that can determine the success of a business, as well as this adaptability. Candace gave an example for the insurance side in terms of the resilience and how things change, but same for marketing. I mean, new technology like AI and even just social media platforms are coming out so frequently that it's hard to stay on top of every single thing. At a certain point, you're really just going to have to understand what's worth your time and who you can lean on as experts and really build that trust. So another aspect of a successful owner is adaptability. You need to be flexible and adapt to new changes. The landscape is constantly changing, as we both said, from technology to market conditions. Who could have predicted COVID? How nimble or businesses able to go to telehealth? How about the people who had to shut down their businesses? They didn't have brick and mortar anymore. And so you had to do in-home sessions, but then that was another issue. So really being able to embrace those obstacles is going to determine success. And as Candace said, embracing those challenges, that change as constant and just thinking about how to push it forward. So we mentioned a few times already that owning a business is all consuming, and so that kind of deals with the passion aspect. A successful business owner is passionate about this work. They're driven and committed to success. So I think the reason why all of us signed up for this webinar is because you are very passionate about ABA and wanting to help people and have a positive impact on people's lives. So passion is not your problem. Clearly you all are thinking about this because you are genuinely motivated in that way. And really driven for success. So challenges and obstacles are going to arise. You really can't avoid that, but having that passion about the field and the industry is what's going to help you respond proactively to those challenges.
So one thing we see, I see a lot of in startups is, you're a BCBA, you got into this line of field or this line of work to make a difference, in the lives of children. And so a frequent kind of complaint that I hear is, I don't get to work with the kids anymore. I'm just drowning in paperwork. I'm drowning in this billing. Insurance is so impossible to work with. I miss working with the kids, but I can't because I have to sit on the phone with, insurance for 3 hours. Or you might, as you're kind of working with, BTs and kind of the younger generation, I feel like an adult babysitter. I'm having to, discipline RBTs for last minute call outs and not doing their session notes. And I'm just constantly having to get on to people about doing their session notes. So in your startup phase, when you're planning your business, take a step back and think about what aspects of the job and industry do you really like and dislike. Your BCBAs, you probably did get into this line of work because you wanted to make a difference in the lives of children with autism. Maybe you've been a BCBA for 8 years and you're clinically burnt out. And so maybe you're like, you know what? Give me a stack of billing paperwork. I would love to just fill out, forms all day and I would love that. Great. That might be, where you focus your attention. But really just kind of think about what it is that you like to do, and understanding that as a startup, you are probably going to have your hands in a lot of different pots, but think about what the ultimate goal is. When I get my business established and operating smoothly, where do I see myself? What do I want to be doing ultimately?
Absolutely.
Next slide.
Yep.
Successful business owners always embrace continuous learning and have a growth mindset, constantly seeking new knowledge and skills. And this is probably one of the most important things with this type of business. So in the healthcare space, as Nicole mentioned from the marketing side, technology is constantly changing. That doesn't just apply to marketing. That applies to, how you're doing your clinical notes, how you're collecting your data, how you are scheduling, how you are billing. There's constant change in technology that you have to keep abreast with. There's also constant rules and regulations changes. So looking at it from a regulatory perspective, some states do not require BCBAs to have a state license. Other states do. Some states are transitioning from, hey, we didn't used to require BCBAs to have a state license, but we're going to do that in the near future. So you constantly have to evaluate, okay, now a state license is required. What do I need to do? How do I get that? As I mentioned earlier, and as I'll continue to touch on, health insurance companies are constantly changing their procedures, their regulations, their standards. And you have to embrace that just because you know how to do something today doesn't mean that you're going to know how to do it in 6 months. You constantly have to seek out the newest information and then pivot when you find out, oh, you know, this platform has completely changed and the procedure for submitting your claims is completely different, or the procedure now for collecting this data is completely different. You have to embrace that and really put your full effort into learning learning the new way, and understand that the new way will probably be the old way in another 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. The last trait that we want to touch on is humility. And again, this kind of goes back to what Candace was just saying, but a good business owner will understand that they don't have all the answers. They have the ability to listen to their team, their customers, their mentors. Above all else, their goal is to constantly improve the business. And that requires you to find a balance between leaning on experts and also having in your mind the big picture vision of how to move forward. And that's not to say that you have to listen to mentors who, because they might not have, you don't have to listen to mentors completely because they might not necessarily have all the bits of information that are as a soup in your own mind. But knowing how to take their input and then kind of process that and say, okay, well, I've heard what they say, and considering my motivations and in my vision, this is what I want to do moving forward. But it does require you to listen to others and know having a team to really lean on. So some of that information that we just kind of went over, we probably hammered that point a little too much, or maybe it was kind of basic information, but really ultimately we wanted to go over those pieces because it's important to constantly have that in the back of your mind. Owning a business is going to get stressful, and you're going to think there's going to be some days that you love it, and there's going to be some days like, man, what am I doing? And so just kind of understanding that we all have that waffle back and forth. And so just understand that you're not alone in this journey. But that's why it's really important to have a team to support you. So again, tying these back to those essential questions, what is your motivating decision to start your business? Are you considering this because you think you can do it better than everybody else? That may be true, but you still need to have the humility to listen to others, because ultimately no one can be an expert in everything. There's just not enough hours in the day. So I'm not questioning your ability to understand information. It's more, what's your time worth? Are you considering this because you want to get back in the field? You're in a position as an employee and you're doing too much admin work because they're dumping it on you and you don't really have control of your schedule. Well, owning a business is not really going to solve that problem, because everyone is depending on you to do everything and make all of the decisions and really lead this forward. So that means less time in the field and more time doing admin work, unless you make that a priority because that's what is important to you. It's like someone who decides to be a teacher because they get summers off. It's probably not the best reason, and that will definitely lead to burnout. So again, just kind of think about these pieces here.
And so to that point, how do your personal qualities align with all of these traits of successful business owners? Are you comfortable making these tough decisions? Where do your strengths lie? You may be an amazing clinician, but have zero understanding of, health insurance or billing, or have zero understanding of, you're not a CPA. You got your degree in behavior analysis, not accounting.
Yeah.
So it's really just kind of or maybe you got your degree in behavior analysis, but you have a natural aptitude for accounting. That's great too. So you really have to think about what your personal qualities are, and where nobody, as Nicole said, nobody is going to be an expert in everything. It's impossible. There are not enough hours in the day. Even if you devoted yourself to becoming, an HR master, a CPA, a billing, health insurance billing expert, even if you wanted to devote yourself to becoming an expert in all of those things, there's just not enough time in the day to do all of those things and run a successful business. And so really think about where your strengths are and where you want to put your time. And then think about, well, I'm not so great at this, or maybe, I could be great, but it would require a lot of time and it's just not worth that time investment. I would be better off hiring somebody who is an expert in that thing to manage that aspect of the business.
Yeah, and I guess ultimately what we're trying to get at is really getting a sense of your own strengths and weaknesses, and just understanding that we completely understand that you may be feeling some frustration in your current position as an employee, and you think, well, I know I can do this better. Um, Again, that very well may be true, but understanding that you don't necessarily have to do it all on your own. You might be able to partner with somebody, or maybe you really start to define what you are good at and what you do like about this field, and then maybe work to make your current position as an employee a little bit better, or maybe help the employer that your employer be a little bit more ethical, things like that. It's I guess our point is here, just because you might be feeling some frustration as an employee in this industry, um, maybe just think about what you're saying when you say you want to start a business. Because there's a lot to it, is all we're saying. So with all of that, again, our purpose was not to scare you away. It was really just to kind of level set. And a lot of that might have been pretty basic information. However, it's good to level set and kind of get your expectations in line. And if you heard all that information and you're thinking, yep, I know I can do this, then you're in a really wonderful spot. And this next chunk of slides will help you dive right in. So the three things that you need to start your business. If you're ready to kind of take the plunge with us, to start your ABA practice, the three things that you need is first, you need to attract some clients. So that's marketing. That's your marketing strategy. Second, you'll need to properly serve those clients. That's credentialing, what Canvas is a pro at. And then third, you need to build your team of trusted advisors. So I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing, and then I'll hand it over to Candace to talk about the credentialing, and then we'll wrap up with the third bit. So attracting clients. I remember when I was considering this journey into business ownership, I received a really wonderful piece of advice from one of my mentors. He told me that the first thing I needed to do was write down a list of 5 to 10 of people that I know who I consider my biggest cheerleaders. These are the people in my life who can support me as best they can, the people who are really rooting for my success. Ideally, these would be people who could ultimately refer clients to help me grow my business. But it was also just people in my life who had a business and let me leave a stack of brochures in their lobby. Or it was people who were willing to forward a newsletter on my behalf to their network. Or it was someone who always liked my social media posts and would always comment and share it and expand my reach. So there's definitely different levels of ways people can support you. And I think you'll be able to find a list of people who are really cheering you on. And just be kind to them, really nurture those relationships, because that's going to be the building blocks for how you attract clients. So my point is that your cheerleaders might not have the ability to directly hand you a client, but they are the people willing to shout your name from the rooftops. And that's a really great way to get your network started. The next piece of advice, and we've kind of touched on with the personal traits and everything, but to do a personal SWOT analysis. So SWOT is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. These again tie back to those essential questions and your motivation. But what do you really like about this field? What are your strengths within it? What are the parts of the job that you hate doing? And be honest, because I'm sure there are parts that you hate. There's parts about marketing that I hate. But I have to just kind of find ways to work within those, really understanding what I do like about it and working towards that, emphasizing that. And for example, Candace mentioned bookkeeping. I when I first started, was pretty adamant that I wanted to do my own bookkeeping. I'm good with money and with budgets. I didn't have many expenses, and I figured I was smart enough to figure it out. So again, I was not, didn't have enough humility there. So in theory, yes, the basic concepts of bookkeeping I could do. I know all of those, the basic parts of it. However, QuickBooks is a beast of a software that glitches and is finicky. And I didn't know that software well enough to know when it was a glitch or when it was a mistake I had made. And so, I didn't know the software well enough, and it would take me 4 hours to realize that, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. It was just that the software screwed up. So eventually I wised up and talked with a bookkeeper, and within 5 minutes he would say, oh, you just needed to do this. And that was kind of the moment I realized, like, oh, this is not worth my time. And I needed to start leaning on an expert, because my time was better spent elsewhere, like marketing, like networking. And then even though that was kind of like a hard a fee to pay him to do my books, $200 a month, to do that was maybe something in my budget that I didn't feel like I could afford, because those 5 hours that I was now freeing myself up with, I could now use that to network, brought in way more clients that I could afford $200 and then some. So again, just kind of thinking about where your strengths are really best utilized. And just really be honest with yourself here. The next step in your marketing foundation is to define your story. What sets you apart? Why should someone trust you over someone else? This is a really saturated market. How can you cut through all of the saturation and the noise? These are some big questions that will really lay the foundation for your unique selling points. And that all kind of starts with you defining your story and your motivation. What are your values? Why do people trust you? All those kind of things. And then from that information, you can create a brand. So your mission, vision, values can provide the fodder for a business name and a logo, and your messaging and your brand as a way to connect with your ideal target audience. So we're kind of scratching the surface because there's a lot of information here. But really, educating, my business name, Educate Digital, is a mix of advertising and education. So this is really where my passion is. And so to that end, I have tons of free blogs and resources on my website. And again, if you have joined us after the fact, this presentation will be shared around with the video recording as well as the presentation slides. So you'll be able to get access to all these links and things like that. But my blogs can help you get started from everything from picking a really strong business name to developing your marketing starter kit on a really cheap budget to learning the kind of basics of networking. You may also still be in the exploratory phase and not quite ready to pin down specifics yet. You don't know what your story is. You don't know how people connect with you. Maybe you still need to kind of articulate that. And so I have a couple of quizzes and resources on my website as well, that are free to use. They're kind of like personality quizzes. So you answer some questions and then it spits out a report that you can use as a basis to develop a brand. So specifically the ones I think might be useful for you here is learning how to identify your target audience. You might be working with children, you might be an ABA provider that can do executive functioning, and maybe on the older as kids age out, really understanding like where your benefit is to the community will also kind of help you set yourself apart. And then knowing how to communicate with them to attract them is really helpful. So these two quizzes will help you kind of figure that out. When you are ready to solidify some of these ideas, these branding ideas, I have a series of templates and infographics that will help you pin things down and kind of pull it all together. So these are all free, but that means that you're going to be doing them on your own. So again, kind of figuring out what your time is worth. I am always, of course, happy to help pull it into a marketing strategy and help you brainstorm and figure things out that way. But everything's available for you to kind of tackle on your own. Go ahead.
All right. So now you have begun to put together, or you've begun to utilize these wonderful resources that Nicole has provided, and you're actually getting client referrals. How do you serve them? How do you bill for them? What does that look like? And so the first kind of step in billing is actually credentialing and contracting. And there are things that you need to think about and resources that you need to have in place before you even begin that journey, including a physical address in the state in which you operate, even if you're only doing in-home services. And the reason for this is that when you submit a claim to insurance, you have to list what they call a billing address. And that billing address cannot be a P.O. box. It cannot contain the words P.O. box. Now, that does not mean it can't be a P.O. box. It just can't say P.O. box. So if you do a Google search for virtual office address, there are lots of different companies and websites that you can pay, a nominal fee, usually 20 or 30 bucks a month, for a P.O. box, for a P.O. box that actually looks like a street address. So it will say, 123 Main Street, Anytown, USA. But it's really a virtual address. It's not a physical address. You absolutely need to have that in order to bill insurance companies and in order to get contracted and credentialed. You also have to have a tax ID. And you have to retain that letter that you get from the IRS that says, congratulations, we recognize that your tax ID is now on file with the Internal Revenue Service. You have to retain that letter because a lot of insurance companies will require that when you go through their credentialing process. You also have to have a type 2 or group NPI. It's typically takes less than 24 hours to get an NPI, but you do have to have one in place. You have to have a completed W-9 form and professional and general liability insurance. And then you also have to have 1 to 3 BCBAs to initiate a group contract request. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. This is kind of gets a little bit more in the weeds. But you can either be contracted with the insurance companies as a group practice or as an individual BCBA. And so if you were starting your own company, ABC, ABA, it is ideal and preferable to get a group contract for a lot of different reasons. The main one is just streamlining your processes administratively, but you will need 1 to 3 BCBAs to accomplish that. Next slide.
Sure. I'm just gonna, we just got the 5-minute alert.
Yeah,
please don't feel like you need to rush. I will just kind of let people know in the group, if you need to hop off, feel free. We will share these slides again, as I'll say in the recording. But we don't I don't want to cut you off because this is really the kind of meat of the presentation.
So each BCBA that that's going to render services will also need a BCBA certification and state license if applicable in your state. They will need a completed CAQH profile. So CAQH is an online database that insurance companies access to verify providers' educational information, demographic information, professional licensure information. So you will need to have a CAQH profile completed. Some payers, like TRICARE, are going to require a CPR or basic life support certification and a background check. And then all BCBAs that you credential will also need a type 1 NPI or an individual NPI. And again, those are super easy to, they typically take less than 24 hours to get an NPI, but you do have to have that before you begin the process. Next slide. So there's kind of a credentialing and contracting is it's a process. And to kind of define terms here, credentialing and contracting are technically two separate processes. So contracting is the process of signing a legal agreement with the insurance company that you are agreeing to certain reimbursement rates and you're agreeing to follow certain standards and rules. And then credentialing is the process which the insurance company actually verifies each BCBA individually, right? So they verify, yes, this BCBA is who they say they are. They do have the appropriate professional licensure. They do have the appropriate, education of a master's degree or higher. They do not have, a criminal, background, or they're not on the sex offender registry. They're not excluded from participating in Medicaid. And so we talk about these as two separate processes. They do take place in tandem with many insurance companies. So many insurance companies, you kind of submit all your information at once, and they do the contracting and the credentialing kind of simultaneously, in the background. But just for clarity, when we do talk about credentialing and contracting, they are technically two separate processes. And so the processes and the timeframes do vary greatly by insurance company. The general process is gathering all of the documents that are required that we mentioned in the previous slides, going through the contracting process, signing that legal agreement with the insurance company, saying, yes, I agree to these reimbursement rates. The insurance company credentialing the BCBA and saying, yes, this BCBA meets all of our requirements. And then operationally complying, and then of course getting paid. So operational compliance, once you are contracted with an insurance company, you actually have to abide by the contract. You actually have to, if they say, for instance, that you must submit your claim within 90 days from the date of service, you have to actually do that in order to get paid. So that's kind of the general process. I do want to point out it does vary by insurance company, and it also, as far as the timelines, contracting can take an average of 3 to 6 months. Credentialing takes an average of 3 to 4 months. Those are averages. They do vary wildly by payer. There are certain payers that may have the process completed within 2 to 4 weeks. There are certain payers where it may take a year, and that also can vary within the same payer in different states. So just kind of an example, credentialing in Kentucky for Humana. There is a great rep assigned to that territory, a great Humana representative assigned to Kentucky, and that representative is extremely responsive and turnaround times are very quick. However, here in Texas, Humana lost their main rep, their main Texas rep, and so that position was vacant for quite a while. I don't believe it is now, but it was for quite a while. And so I was seeing extremely quick turnaround with credentialing and contracting in Kentucky, but Humana in Texas just was not moving. So that's kind of something to keep in the back of your mind. As a credentialing and contracting professional, I can kind of give you, ballpark. I can say this payer is generally done pretty quickly. This payer generally takes a long time. But it really does vary by market, by state, whatever's going on at the payer level. Do they have a lot of vacant positions? Do they have a lot of people out sick? Do they have Are they experiencing high turnover or, inner turmoil that's going to extend the process? So the process really does, the basic process is the same, but the time, the nuances really vary by payer. Did we lose our?
No, we're good. You're good. Yep. Keep
Okay,
going.
next slide. So one thing that I cannot emphasize enough is that working with health insurance is not like working with other funding sources. Pretty much in every other universe or every other industry in the universe, you render services and you get paid. So I hire a painter to paint my house. Painter says it's probably going to cost $4,000. I say, okay, great, paint my house. They paint my house. They say, here's your painted house. And my credit card is charged for $4,000. Unfortunately, that is not how it works in the healthcare space. Health insurance can contractually, in your health insurance contracts, there is a stipulation that they have, and it does vary a little bit by payer, but it's usually between 30 and 45 days to pay you if you do everything right. So billing errors on your part extend that time frame. Each payer also has their own rules when it comes to clinical documentation, billing, and reimbursement policies. And if you do not comply with these policies, either because you are choosing not to or because you are just not educated on the policies, that can lead to audits and fines. In most cases, it is unethical to discharge clients or pause treatment services due to insurance non-payment. So there are a few, for instance, if the insurance doesn't pay because guess what, mom and dad haven't paid their premium and the child is not covered by insurance, then it is acceptable and it's ethical to discharge that child if the parents, don't pay the balance. But I hear from a lot of practice owners that are, man, we just this is just impossible. We've done, everything, and the insurance still won't pay, and we've called them and we've had them, and they won't pay. We should just discharge this kid. That is one of those, going back to the earlier points in the presentation, that's kind of one of those situations where, yeah, discharging the child may be in the best interest of time, but is it ethical? And the answer in most cases is no. Next slide. So what does all of that mean? You need a plan for operating in the health insurance space. You should.
Next slide.
Yeah, next slide. You should educate yourself on payer processes. And circling back to earlier in the presentation, continually educate yourself on payer processes. I've managed a team of credentialing specialists, and I used to tell my team, I don't want you to be able to recite the payer processes and policies verbatim to me. That really means nothing because they will change on a dime. So as a business owner, put less focus on, okay, wait a second, I have to file my claims for Blue Cross within 180 days, and I have to file my claims for Aetna within 90 days. Put less emphasis on memorizing those things and more emphasis on educating yourself where to find that information. Where do you go if you want to know Aetna's latest policies, if you want to know how long you have to submit a claim for Aetna, or if you want to know what modifiers to put on the claim for Blue Cross, where do you go to find that information? And so to that point, routine checkups, each payer is different, policies change often. I would say at least a couple of times a year, at least, in January and June, you should be kind of reviewing, your payer policies. Medicaid payers, I would personally recommend reviewing those quarterly. But for the commercial payers, you should kind of be doing a routine checkup. Let me go to the website. Let me look at their policies and procedures. Okay, cool. Nothing's changed. Great. And you should also consider hiring an expert. And this is, health insurance is confusing. It's time consuming. All of the policies and procedures change regularly. And so kind of as a business owner, you need to familiarize yourself with it and educate yourself. But how in the weeds can you realistically be on a day-to-day basis? Next slide. So my website does provide, I do have some resources, some PowerPoint presentations on health insurance basics. And this particular one is for total health insurance newbies. If you don't understand terms like PPO, HMO, deductible, co-insurance, this one would be for you. Then there's another one on there that goes specifically over ABA billing. So if you're a little bit more well-versed with insurance, you know what a PPO is, you know what an HMO is, but you're trying to figure out how to apply that knowledge to the ABA space. There's a presentation on there for that as well. And I also have a variety of, I have some client intake packets and financial packets on my website for purchase as well. Really gathering all of the necessary information is key to successful billing and successful reimbursement. And so I do have resources on my website that will help you with that. Next slide.
I think this is the one that's missing. Yeah. So if you want to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So also, I do have a special offer. We will email it out to you. Attendees of this webinar will get 25% off of the client intake packet. And there'll be a code that you can use upon checkout, and we will email that to you.
Awesome. So thank you for everybody who has stayed with us for, I know, as you can see, both Candace and I can talk for many, many hours on these topics, but this is the last 2 slides here. So thank you for sticking around with us. Hopefully you found some information in this presentation that was useful and kind of helped set your expectation and then motivated you to continue your journey. We are both here to help support you. Again, that wasn't meant to scare you away or say that you can't do this. This is really helping you have success because we want to support you in that way. So to that end, it's really important to, surround yourself with experts and mentors and a strong team that will support your growth and really help you navigate these challenges. Some really basic intro ones that as you get started, a bail team is really important. So you get a bookkeeper, accountant, insurance, and lawyer. That's what bail stands for. These are key pieces. Don't try to do your own taxes. Let somebody else take care of that. It's well worth the $400 or whatever once a year to do that. So yeah, just kind of keep some people in your back pocket that will help you support in that way. In terms of marketing and growing your business and getting visibility out there, these are some resources that I found have been really helpful. If you're not familiar with SCORE, Small Business Association, they have tons of free webinars and resources on their website. They've been really great. And you can actually work with a free mentor to get all the business side, business plan, all that kind of stuff, funding, all that stuff together. If you're a woman-owned business, there's lots of Women Business Center that give grants and things like that to help support your business. Chamber of Commerce, depending on what city you're in, they might have some resources for you. And also they do lots of events to allow you to network and meet new people and connect. And so again, lots of networking groups as a way to just get visibility and start attracting those clients. So as we come to the end of this presentation, we want to thank each of you for joining us and taking the first steps towards a rewarding journey from ABA to ethical business owner. We've covered a lot of ground, from understanding your motivation and tackling real world challenges to building a solid foundation for your practice. Remember that the path to owning a successful ABA practice is filled with both challenges and opportunities. emphasis on opportunities. It requires dedication, resilience, and a strong ethical compass. But with the right tools and support, you can navigate this journey successfully. So we've provided you with those tips and strategies to help grow your start and grow your practice. So just continue to surround yourself with a team of trusted advisors and have the humility and patience to continually invest in learning and development. So we are here, we have your back, we want to help you succeed. This is our contact information. I also wanted to throw out there that we've set aside some time next week where we can have one-on-one time with people, the attendees of this webinar. So if you follow this QR code, and also again, we'll send out these slides, but this is a clickable link to the same website. But you can book a free one-on-one 30-minute session with Candace and I. And this is on July 4th. Time slots are 30-minute increments. I'm sorry, July 24th. Yes, thank you. Starting from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So feel free, if any of this kind of inspired you to want to learn more, feel free to come chat with us. We are well over time, so I won't save any time for Q&A, but if you do have any questions, again, here's our contact information, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending, and please let us know if you have any additional questions. Just email us, and we will respond happily.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you again.